Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to break down a really powerful framework for understanding human behavior. This could totally change the way you see everyone, and maybe even yourself.
All right, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we're going to look at why we get people wrong so often. Then, we'll dive into these 4 big laws that kind of drive everything we do. After that, we get super practical with 4 different lenses you can actually use. We'll see how they work in the real world, and then we'll talk about installing this whole thing as a new operating system for how you see people.
Okay, let's kick things off with a feeling that I'm pretty sure everyone has had.
We've all been there, right? Someone does something and you're just baffled, or maybe even really angry. It feels so personal, like they're doing it at you. But what if that first gut reaction, the one where we immediately judge them, what if that's almost always the wrong take?
So the source material gives us this perfect classic example, road rage. Picture this. You're driving, and this guy in a huge pickup truck just swerves right in front of you. And to top it off, he flips you the bird. The default reaction is instant, right? We're angry. We immediately slap a label on that guy. But this whole explainer is about asking, is there a better way, a more useful way to see what just happened? It's about shifting from that instant judgment to, well, maybe some actual understanding.
So to really get what's happening inside that truck, and honestly, in pretty much every interaction you have, whether it's at work or at home, we need a foundation. We need some ground rules. And that is exactly where these 4 behavioral laws come into play. They're the why behind what people do.
Now, don't think of these as some dry academic theories. They're more like super practical observations about, well, how we all tick. And they stack on top of each other, see? It starts with this idea of universal suffering, which makes us put on a mask. Then we pretend the mask isn't even there. And the crazy part, it all ties back to our childhood. So let's unpack this a little.
Okay, this first law, this is the bedrock. It's the foundation for everything else. The author talks about learning that suffering is just a universal condition. We all have our own stuff going on, our own battles, our insecurities, our fears. We're just really, really good at hiding it. And that's the key right there. This is the baseline reality for you, for me, for the person who made your coffee this morning, for everyone.
And that leads us to this really interesting push and pull between the next 2 laws. So Law 2 says we all wear a mask, right? A kind of persona. It's a survival thing, helps us fit in. But then Law 3 says we spend all our energy pretending we're not wearing a mask. We want everyone to think this is the real me. The real trick, the real skill here is learning to see that other people are wearing a mask without ever pointing it out.
And this last law, this is where it all comes from. This is where our programming gets written. The framework argues that by the time we're, say, 18 years old, something like 90% of our habits with other people are already locked in. They're hardwired by the good and bad stuff that happened to us as kids. So in a lot of ways, the adult you see today is really just an echo of the child they once were.
Okay, so if those laws are the why people do what they do, the big question is, how do we actually use that information in the heat of the moment? Well, that's where these 4 perceptual lenses come in. This is your practical toolkit. This is the how.
Yeah, you can really think of these like 4 different operating systems for your brain. Each one takes the exact same input, someone's behavior, but spits out a totally different result. It changes how you feel and how you react.
All right, let's make this real. We're going back to that highway, back to that guy in the pickup truck. We're going to look at that same exact situation through all 4 of these lenses, one at a time.
First up, we have the broken lens. Honestly, this is our default setting. It's our gut reaction. It's when we take everything personally, we see what they did as just wrong or stupid, and we get this immediate urge to jump in and fix it, to correct them.
So when you're looking through this broken lens, what do? You engage. You speed up. You lay on the horn. You tailgate. You feel this need to show them who's boss, to fix the situation by using your own power. And just like that, you're in a power struggle with a total stranger. Okay, next is the different lens. This is a big step up. You're getting more aware. You still feel that flash of anger. You're human, of course you do. And this is the key. You make a conscious choice not to act on it.
Oh yeah, you still get mad. You might even play out a whole fantasy in your head where you get back at them. But the huge difference is that choice. You realize, you know what? Honking at this guy is pointless. It's not going to change him. So you decide not to do anything. You just let it go.
Now we get to the facts lens. And this one brings a weird sense of peace. You start to see what other people do, not as a personal attack, but more like
A fact of nature, like a hurricane. You don't get mad at a hurricane, right? You just see it coming and you prepare for it.
And when you're using this lens, the emotion just drains away. Your response becomes totally logical. It's all about protecting yourself. That jerky driver isn't an insult anymore. He's just a data point that says, danger ahead. So what's the logical move? You slow down, you create some space, and you let that hurricane go on its way. And then you move on completely.
All right, this is the final level. This is where this whole way of thinking becomes second nature. Through the reasons lens, your brain just automatically, instantly, connects what that person is doing all the way back to those 4 laws we talked about at the beginning.
And at this point, judgment just disappears. It's gone. You don't see an asshole in a pickup truck anymore. You see a person whose actions are just a product of their past, a result of their own suffering and programming. And then you realize something profound. The adult isn't really the one driving that truck. The hurt little kid inside of him is.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all add up to? It's really about being aware of which lens you're using, and then consciously deciding to upgrade your own operating system.
The source material has this perfect analogy with a bee. Think about it. If a bee stings you, you might be annoyed, right? But you don't get morally outraged at the bee. You don't think it's evil. You just understand it's a creature doing what it's programmed to do. We can learn to see people the same way, not as bad guys, but just as beings reacting based on their own deep internal programming.
Look, the real power in all of this isn't just knowing the theory. It's about actually practicing it. It's about catching that internal monologue and shifting it. Moving from that guy is such a jerk to I wonder what happened to make him that way. That simple shift, it changes everything. So the only question left is, who will you choose to see differently today?